How are you?
I'm very
Good. Did I lost a bit of sound there? I don't know if the only one. Is that?
I'm here.
Oh,
I
you can
am
hear you
here.
now. I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think it was probably just a studio glitch. How are you doing? I haven't seen you for ages. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well, and I'm really impressed with the setup. You look like you're in a proper studio and everything, Mark. I'm very, very impressed with it.
Exactly. I don't know how much of the previous couple of sessions you've seen, but I mean, we've teed you up with some of the stuff from Scope, obviously the data about the lives of disabled people. And then Alex talking about the strategy that government is hoping to bring forward. But as I say, I think a phrase that we've heard a lot of is the digital divide. And I know that that's been something that that certainly the Good Things Foundation has put into its blueprint, but it's also particularly something that, well, that's how I know you, is from the stuff the UK Online Centres and you know, that sort of initial investment in putting tech into the community. And then bringing it forward. So could you just give me an overview for others who don't know you, a little bit about yourself and also Good Things Foundation and that role that you play in terms of the community work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Helen Milner, so I'm the Group Chief Executive of Good Things Foundation. And I've seen that other people have been describing themselves.
Yes,
I'm a woman. I'm wearing glasses, but I've only actually started wearing glasses during COVID. So it's to do with my age, I believe. And I've been working in digital inclusion, but also before that in online education since the mid-80s. So some people might be able to work out my approximate age because I'm of an age where I'm not going to declare it publicly on the internet. And so Good Things Foundation, we're a charity. We are based in Sheffield in the UK, and we are a digital and social inclusion charity. So all of our work is about how do we support people who are on the wrong side of the digital divide, as you've been talking about, who can't use the internet, have never used the internet, or are using it, but in a limited way. And we see that digital inclusion is a means to an end. So it's about helping people to learn how to use the internet in a supported way in order to help them, for example, to get work, to feel less isolated, to be in touch with friends and family, to access health services, to be able to get up-to-date information. And we do that through a network of thousands of community organisations in the community. So we call these hyper-local community organisations, and they're all over the UK. And that they support people locally to learn how to use the internet. And of course, a lot of things have changed during COVID, but I'm sure you're going to ask me about those, Mark.
Yeah, of course. But in terms of I think some of the texture in terms of the centres, they're in hugely different places in different communities doing different things. You're very much built into the sort of woven into the fabric of the community. My favourite one has always been the fish and chip shop in Stockport that won the Tech for Good Awards 10 years ago. But so many different examples of places where people may be engaging in other activities where you're enabling them to encounter the technology and get support as part of that, I guess that's the model.
Yeah, so I always say that, so I call it a big club with the shared vision, just to get the kind of sense that we're all independent from one another, but actually we've all got the same belief that there are more than 9 million people in our society who need support and help to be able to use the internet and to benefit from everything that brings. So as you mentioned, the fish and chip shop in Stockport, but there's lots of community centres, and those community centres might, for example, run a community cafe. They might do after school clubs for children. They might do recycling programs or food poverty programs. Or there are other, for example, small local charities that might support older people or people with disabilities. So that actually anybody, which is why I call it a big club with a shared vision, anybody who wants to be part of this club is free to be part of it. Anybody who cares about digital inclusion and who is active in digital inclusion can be part of that big club and can work with us in that coordinated way to try and really, really tackle this and to close that digital divide.
And in terms of a way of looking at the digital divide, I guess there's also, You've mentioned digital inclusion. There's clearly a connection to social inclusion. So how much of the digital divide do you think is literally technology, literally that I don't have the device, and how much of it is linked to other factors?
I would say it's all linked to other factors.
Right.
Right, there's a massive overlap between digital and social exclusion. And the two main factors are age and income. So that if somebody is older and has a low income, they're likely to be digitally excluded. So that's either they've never used it, they don't have access, or they have very limited skills. And what we mean by that is they use the internet very rarely, or they use it for a very small number of things. For example, less than 5 apps or websites. So age and income. You've then also obviously got other factors such as education attainment and disability. So disability is another one of those factors that means that people are much more likely to be offline. But I'm sure I don't need to explain to you or to anybody who's listening today that actually there's also a big overlap between people who, for example, don't have work or have low incomes, and age, and people with disabilities as well.
I mean, that leads us on to that. I don't know, over time, clearly various different pieces of work that you're doing. What sorts of stuff, where does disability pop up within the broad framework of what you're doing? Other particular sort of strategies and programs you've been running?
Well, I like to think of it as like a layered approach. So the big club with the shared vision, so we call it the Online Centres Network. So that is clearly something that specifically targets people with disabilities in the communities that they're in, and with, you know, the many disability charities that are in the Online Centres Network, you know, that there are some that absolutely specialise. But everything that we do is we make it as inclusive as possible. That we have an online learning platform called Learn My Way, and it's been set up with a very, very low levels of literacy. So people with a reading age of 9 or can access it, but we also have text to speech, so it's all read out as well. So if people can't read it or can't see it, they'll then be able to access it as well. Then within the community centres, that there are staff and there are volunteers, and that indeed, you know, AbilityNet has helped us to train some of those in the sort of the things to look out for. So particularly because this is a very large scale that we're talking about. So we're helping about 250,000 people a year. And so it could be as simple about helping people to set up the existing accessibility tools that people have on their devices. So on their smartphone or on their laptop or their tablet, they will already have accessibility support built in. So helping people to use that. And it's really important that we're training the staff and the volunteers to make sure that they can help people in that way.
And your blueprint, obviously, looking ahead, that was published, was it September, I think?
Yeah, September.
Can you tell us what's the motivation behind that? And clearly within there, I'm guessing it's a little bit more of the same, but some change, a change up in some way, or something that needs to happen that wasn't happening before?
Yeah, I mean, the blueprint's very much focused on, I would say, policymakers, politicians, people like Alex, but also other stakeholders. So calling for 3 things. The first is a great digital catch-up. And, you know, we would love to do a great digital catch-up on a mass scale. We're calling to halve the digital divide. So 9 million people in the UK can't use the internet without help. And so to have a programme that tackles 4.5 million of them. And actually we've costed that, and we can do that for just 2% of the investment that's going into broadband infrastructure. So that's really important, and we would love to have a specific great digital catch up for people with disabilities as well, to make sure that we're bringing in partners like AbilityNet and also looking at devices potentially with slightly more hardware and software for the people with disabilities. The second one is a data poverty lab, because one of the things we found within COVID is that there are a lot of people who just can't afford the internet. So we can help them with devices, we can help them with mobile data, 6 months, 12 months, but that's going to run out. So what's going to happen to those people who we've supported, over 10,000 people during the pandemic, with new tablets, with new mobile data, but when that runs out, we really need a cross-sector a program. I think we should set ourselves a target of 2 years to close that data poverty gap, to make sure that people who can't afford it can get it for free or very, very, very low costs. And clearly government, the technology and telecom sector and charities need to work together on that. And the third one really is, I'm not convinced that the government's digital strategy, although it's likely that it's delayed or definitely changed by the fact there's just a 1-year spending review now instead of a 3-year spending review. So that's due out next week. That's the spending review is due out next week, not the digital strategy. So a digital strategy that really works for everybody. We've heard a lot of talk about the tech sector, about making sure that people have the higher technology skills to get jobs within the tech sector. But actually what we really need is to make sure that the digital strategy talks about closing the digital divide. Government can't digitize government services without bringing people with them. So if there are still millions and millions of people, over 5 million disabled people who have never used the internet or who are limited users, then that's not okay. We need to make sure that the digital strategy talks to this as an issue, not just about the possibilities of the tech sector. So there are 3 big asks in our blueprint.
I like that. That's cool. And I think, as you say, if you've got to set those goals, you've got to set those targets and then get people behind you. Just as a final question then, we're about to go into a conversation about carrots and sticks. In terms of the work that you've been doing over time, it does strike me. I wonder whether more compulsion might have made things happen quicker. That's one argument for the sticks. And whether the carrots are big enough. Is it understood what's in it in terms of digital inclusion? How do you see that from your position within Good Things Foundation? More carrot, more stick, or?
I think though it depends who you're giving the carrot and the stick to, really. Is that I think it's impossible to use the stick approach for digital inclusion and target that specifically and only on the individual. So, for example, you could say that there are some government services that have kind of used that approach to say, well, if you want to apply for benefits, you've got to do it online. But we know from the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty that 50% of people who applied for universal credit, okay, this was a year or so ago, 50% of them needed help to do that online process, right? Wow. So actually on one level, you could say that's a huge success because we provided the stick and then people have done it. But actually the civil society, charities and others have provided that safety net to make sure that is there. So, can I have a carrot for the individuals and a stick for the government? That's probably where I would go.
Yeah. Well, we've had this discussion a lot, and very few answers involve just one or the other. There was a little bit of both. So thank you. I will definitely direct people to the blueprint and make sure that they know that's there. But thank you so much for coming along. And I think anything that people can do to get in and find out more about the network of community activity that you're talking about, all of the people on the call, I think can do something and join in with that. So it will be great to see that grow and flourish. So.
Absolutely. And like I said, if anybody listening is running an organization that is doing digital inclusion activity, please do join the network. It's completely free. You feel like you're part of a big club, and there's lots of resources and support that you get. So, you know, I don't know why you wouldn't do that, but do come along. On the Good Things Foundation website, there's a phone number, so you can give us a call and ask us what that's all about.
Brilliant. Thank you. Lovely to see you, and take care.
You too, Mark.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.